Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today is October 31st, 2024. Happy Halloween to everybody. I hope everyone's celebrating tonight and staying safe. We're going to be talking about marketing luxury cruise ships as a destination today. We have a really terrific travel advisor who I'm very excited to introduce and talk to, but I just have a few announcements first that I want to run us through. Couple of quick things that I always mention. Speaker view is going to be the best way to watch today's session, and you can switch into that on your Zoom on the top right there. And the chat on the bottom right is going to be open, and we're going to be grabbing questions and comments as we go along today. I already see Richard in the chat. Hello, Richard. It's nice to see you again. And yeah, if you want to interact with us, please go ahead and use that chat, and we'll try to incorporate whatever you are thinking into our discussion today. I also want to thank everyone who came out a couple of weeks ago with Geraldine Ree, which was sort of an owner's focus session. That was a really great episode. It was one I really enjoyed. Geraldine is definitely a part of our family here at Travel Market Report, so it was great to have her. Hoping to have her back at some point in the future. But just for anyone who missed it, you can go ahead and rewatch it on our YouTube page. And Tom, our producer, is going to drop that link into the chat right now. That's going to be the home to all our audio content, all our video content. We'll have today's episode up on that page later today as well. So if you're interested in rewatching this and watching other things, watching past episodes, we've done a lot on the luxury cruise side of things. We've done a lot of different topics on agency building, on hiring, on firing, on fees, things like that. That's all on the YouTube. You can go ahead and subscribe to the videos with that link that Tom just dropped in the chat right there. And then a reminder for our next episode, which will be the only episode in November. We'll be back on November 14th, sort of taking a look at the trends that are going to be defining travel in 2025. It's getting towards the end of the year. I know that's shocking for a lot of people. It's shocking for our team as well. 2024 sort of flown by. We want to take a sort of a look to 2025. I know a lot of our advisors are seeing different things in the market, and we want to have a frank, honest, open discussion about what's driving consumers, what's driving clients, what's driving the industry in 25. So look for that. That'll be November 14th. You can register in that link that Tom, again, just dropped in the Zoom there too. One more quick announcement before I introduce our sponsor for today. I want to drop the link to our newsletter in the chat. I know so many of you are already subscribed to our newsletter, but if you have colleagues, if you have ICs you work with, if you have new people coming to the industry, our newsletter, I will say, is a great vehicle to get them signed up and informed of what's happening in the industry. We cover as much as we can. We cover the news we think is most important to travel advisors. Our tagline is sort of the voice of the travel advisor. We are from a family of travel advisors, so if you do have more people in your agency that are not signed up yet, please go ahead. You can forward that subscription link along, and that helps us keep growing this family, keep growing this community, and keep bringing you the content that we hope you enjoy and we hope you appreciate. So newsletter link in there, YouTube's link in there. I think that's all for me. So let's go ahead and introduce today's sponsor. I know so many of you know Amy, but we're so happy to have Amy Price from Explora Journeys back with us today to tell us a little bit about all the exciting stuff that's going on with Explora Journeys and to introduce our travel advisor for today.
Great. Thanks, Jen, and thanks to TMR for giving us this opportunity. As a new brand, we are so excited to remain connected with our travel advisors and share what is new with the brand. And I think the biggest thing that's new since we've probably last done a master series with you is the fact that we have a fleet. We actually have 2 ships now, and we've doubled in size. So we have more opportunities for your clients to experience Explora Journeys. And we will soon have on sale our 3rd ship as well. So little tip today, at the end of November, we will have our summer 2026 itineraries open, which will include the 3rd ship. Now, the 3rd ship will be slightly different from ships 1 and 2. She will be about 60 feet longer because she's going to have that opportunity to sail with LNG power. But what I think is great about that is the ship is not going to increase the number of guests. We are actually going to be offering more of our penthouse suites and more of our resident suites, which are our top tier suites. We're finding more and more of those luxury clients are wanting those types of accommodations and wanting more space, which is something that we have built our brand on. So look for those opportunities to be coming quick and fast. I know you said that we can't believe it's the end of getting towards the end of the year,
Yeah.
being October 31st, and happy Halloween, everyone. We're approaching Black Friday, so you're going to see a Black Friday offer from us. You'll see a wave offer. And ladies and gentlemen, we do still have space for festive. So if you have clients that are looking to get away for the holidays, we do still have space. And as a travel advisor engaged with us, if you book any of our remaining 2024 journeys, you are going to earn an additional 5% bonus commission. So keep that in mind. We actually did some analysis recently, and about 15% of our bookings are booking and traveling within a month at the moment. So there is interest in close-in cruising and close-in vacations. And I want you to not just think about your traditional avid cruisers, but also think about your new to cruise clients, your luxury hotel guests. And I think today's topic is the perfect topic to discover Explora Journeys with, because we can be your ship as the destination. Your clients may have been to the Caribbean, they may have been to the Mediterranean, but they've never been to those destinations the way that Explora Journeys does it. And if you think about it, guests that typically book luxury hotels, they're booking because they want to go to that specific hotel. So why not book Explora Journeys as the destination? And with that, I want to turn it over back to Dan and introduce Suzanne Moore. Susan with Cultured Traveler has sailed with us several times, and I think she is probably a pro at being able to articulate what a great space we have on board and how our ships feel like homes at sea, and how you can sell a ship as the destination, not just Explora Journeys, but I am so appreciative of her being here today to be part of this master series and connect with TMR. So I'm going to turn it back over to Dan and Suzanne. I'll be in the background and pop back on later in the conversation. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I actually have a quick question, Amy. For the festive season, I know we're talking about the ship as a destination, but I'm curious what destinations and what itineraries are
great question.
featured. Yeah.
Great question. So guests are going to want to escape from cold weather. We are in the Caribbean with both ships. The beauty of what we're offering over the festive season is we have 2 7-night itineraries on both ships that could be combined back to back to encompass both the Christmas and the New Year holidays, doing a 14 to 15 night journey round trip out of Miami. Otherwise, you would be doing 7 nights between Miami and San Juan. So check those out. Any of our business relationship leads would be more than happy to help you understand what we have to offer. You can call into our ambassadors, and you can also connect with us on our Travel Advisor Center as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amy. I know Amy's hanging around, so if anyone does have questions, hopefully she'll be in the chat. But thank you so much. It's always great to be partnered with Explora. And yeah, we're really happy to sort of move on and get to our travel advisor today. I'm so happy to introduce Suzanne Moore. Suzanne has a very unique background. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about luxury ships as a destination, get a lot of different perspectives of the industry. But before we do any of that, I just want to say thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for taking the time. I know you were traveling. I know things are busy for everyone, and we really appreciate
it's my pleasure.
Your time and your candor today. Yeah. So before we go on, I know I mentioned you have a unique background. I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up selling travel.
So I actually retired from Wall Street years ago, and it was during COVID, believe it or not, that I took my first cruise. So that was in November of 2021. And since then, I've done 19 cruises. And I only started in the travel business about a year and a half ago, because I met a couple that owned a small boutique travel agency in Michigan. And they said to me, "We don't have anybody who does cruises, and you seem to know more than people who have been in the business 20 years. And I said, "Well, that's a result of my having watched every YouTube video possible during COVID." And that's how I got into the travel business. And so I think, when Amy said that I've been on the ship, I have had 65 days on Explora, all paid for by me, myself, and I. So
it's like it seems like you've lived like a career in the travel industry in such a short amount of time.
I have.
Yeah,
I have. And it's a fabulous industry. And as I said to you before we got on the call, I sailed my whole life. So being on the water was very natural for me. I would get up at 4:30 in the morning, watch the sunrise. It's a very natural place for me to be. So it is really a home away from home.
Yeah, when we were speaking, you did mention your background and you sort of gave me your point of view of where you were coming from to try to get a perspective in the industry, sort of an analytical, data, detail driven point of view. Also, maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. Like, how does that point of view inform what your perspective is on the travel industry, and how did your 2 years in the industry so far sort of prepare you for what you're doing now?
So I think a couple of things. Only 2% of the traveling population actually has cruised, which means 98% of people who travel have not cruised. And that's either, on a mass market ship or an ultra luxury ship. So there is a lot of business to be had. And one of the areas that I focus personally on is solo travel, because I'm a solo traveler. And that's growing at an annual rate of between 6 and 9%, which is enormous because as my demographic gets older, we're either widowed, divorced, or, just choose to be solo. So it's a huge demographic. And I think that the ships are beginning to pay attention to it, but it's an area that is screaming to be serviced. I mean, people want to travel and they have hesitancy if they're alone. And I see that a lot in my clients.
I'm curious, you mentioned the 90+% of the public who has not been on a cruise yet. I'm curious what your take is that, because you do have a different take from having the experience and also jumping in the industry sort of fairly recently. I'm curious, why do you think that number is so small compared to the amount of people who have yet to cruise?
So I think people think it's prohibitively expensive to take a cruise. They look at the numbers and they go, I can't afford that. Or that's not what I want to spend. And my experience has been when you break it down to, especially a new to cruise person, if they go to a 4.5-star hotel and they spend $500 a night, and that doesn't include breakfast, lunch, dinner, transportation, by the time you start to add up all of the amenities, if you will, of being on a cruise ship, it's actually less expensive. It's about 4 or 5% less expensive to go on a cruise than to go to, let's say, Paris or Lisbon or Madrid or Barcelona on your own, or Rome, and try to fit in all the excursions and go from city to city. It becomes very cost effective. And I think a lot of the people are unaware as to how the economics of a cruise work. The other thing is they don't want to be in, mass market, so to speak. So I think the area we're focusing on is more the higher end, but, people, when they go with their kids, is that a place for kids to be on a ship? So I think there's a lot of education to the travel industry clientele that needs to occur.
Yeah, and it does seem like that's falling on the shoulders of travel advisors, travel
Mhm.
agency owners. They're going to be the ones sort of
Right.
tasked with communicating and educating clients.
Right.
All right, awesome. So we're talking about luxury cruise today, and I know we have Amy with us too, and Explorer is definitely in that category. I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about sort of your take on that category. What lines belong in that luxury category, and then what clients are sort of drawn into this luxury cruise space?
So after you and I spoke the other day, I did a little bit more research. I think we have the ultra luxury cruise category, which I would put Explora, I would put Silversea, Regent, Crystal, Ponant, and Seabourn in. I think we also have a new category that is emerging, and that would be the ultra luxury cruise category, which would be the Ritz, the Four Seasons, the Orient Express, and the Aman. And they're going to be, between 250 and 400 people. That's a new category that's going to occur. But I think the one thing that this category has is these 4 ships that are coming on in 26 and 27 are really hotels on the water. They're taking their hotel brand and they're building ships to accommodate the people that go to the Four Seasons, the Ritz, the Amangiri, or whatever. Explora Journeys is the first ship that's done that. It's taken that hotel concept and it has literally put it on the ship on the water. And when you get onto something like an Explora Journeys, you feel like you're at a Four Seasons or a Ritz or a St. Regis. The ships are going more and more to having the ship the destination because there's so much to do. There's the wellness center, there are the pools, there are all the cooking classes, there are the wine tasting, there are the educational series that many of them have. Then, of course, there's the excursions. So you really can sell it as a destination. And I think part of it is you have a floating hotel. You can go from port to port. You can get off or you can not get off. You know, you can spend the day in the spa and you can lie on the salt. You know, they have these salt loungers that you can lie on, which are very healing. And you can sit in the infinity pool and you can have, you know, you can watch a movie. So I think that that's where it's really going. That segment of the market is going.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I think about the topic of today, cruise ship as a destination, like you mentioned, sort of those giant cruise ships with the marketing with the water
The water
slides.
slides.
Yeah, really, it's funny you took the words out of my mouth. Those would come to mind, but I know when I speak to Amy, when I speak to Chris Austin, when I speak to other cruise line executives from these luxury cruise lines, they are wanting to market the cruise ship as a destination themselves. I know clients are traveling for destinations, for itineraries a lot, but I think it's important for advisors to know that they can market these ultra luxury ships as a way to get clients into this category.
I think the way you market a cruise today is vastly different than it was, believe it or not, 2 or 3 years ago with the advent of Explora Journeys. Because as I said, I've been on 65 days and they have a tagline called the Ocean State of Mind, which really is if you come out of a highly pressurized environment, you want to get on a ship and just sink into it. You want, you know, the sound of the water, you want the good food, you want the exercise, you want to go swimming. That is really why you can market it as a destination. You know, I think that you have Regent has beautiful ships. They have lots of things to do on board. Silversea as well. I think I told you I did a cruise in the Amazon on Silversea, and it was 22 days, and every day we had an archaeologist and we had a historian that the day before we got into a port, you had the history. So it's a learning environment. And the food is usually excellent. So you can maintain your health, you can be educated, you can be, you know, relaxed. And I think that's why it doesn't have to always be about the itinerary.
Yeah. So a few things I know that are important to your clients and something you've noticed throughout your experience. Cabin size, you mentioned to me, is a very important thing for your clients, and being able to communicate that is important. I'm curious if you could give us sort of your take on how advisors can really talk to their clients about cabin size, particularly how cabin size can range between categories on the ship and also between different lines as well.
So I think that Explora and Silversea have the largest entry level. Regent, Oceana, Seabourn, and Ponant and Crystal have more categories, but they start with, you know, smaller suites. I think with clients, you have to really know your client. If you have a client that is a hotel client, let's say, for instance, you will know if they're a person who only will stay in a suite. So you will know what that square footage is, and you'll pretty much know what that price point is. So you can literally translate that into the size of a suite on a cruise ship. You know, Silversea is, I think it's 565. I think Explora is 575 or 77 square feet entry level. That is a deluxe double at a Ritz hotel. So you can say you will be comfortable there. Some of the others have smaller ones to begin with, but you can say this is the category you would be most comfortable with. So as I think I also said to you, coming from Wall Street, there is the rule which is know your customer. You have to know what your customer likes or doesn't like, or what, you know, what's important or not important. Maybe they'll be okay with a smaller cabin as long as they have a veranda. You know, you have to ask the question, you know, and you have to also send them pictures. You have to engage with them. The cruise ships are excellent about having, you know, photographs, and they're always available to send your clients what the cabin will look like. So I think that's also important.
So we're going to talk a little, we talked a little bit about the ship as sort of, you said, sink into the ship is sort of this oasis away from, like you talk about the kind of clients who are coming and paying these prices. They might want some disconnection from work. They might want some time to relax.
As long as it has high-speed internet access.
As long as it has high-speed internet access. Yeah, exactly.
God knows I got to get online. I want to relax, but I have to get online. It's interestingly enough, even the most chill client, oh no, but I have to be able to reach my office. It has the internet, so that's also, it's a real funny dichotomy between, relaxing and always being in touch.
So the ability to disconnect but also stay connected, I think, is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Cabin size. I know something else that's really important that again makes these ships a destination themselves is the food. And I know food is spoken about with every aspect of vacation these days. If you're on any social media, it seems dominated by food videos, TikTok, Instagram Reels, things like that. What about convincing people about the quality of cuisine on a luxury ship, particularly that segment of the population who has yet to experience yet?
I think you can very effectively point to social media, and you can read about, I think I told you I'm very active on social media. I write all the time. And I can't tell you how many people have said to me, because I read this, and this, it made me want to try this particular line. I think food is very important. I think all of the ones we've discussed have excellent food. I mean, Explora did just win the award for having best cuisine on the sea. And I can tell you, my pants are still waiting for me to go back down a size. But the food is excellent. The food's excellent on all of the ships. The other thing that I think becomes an issue with people is people who have allergies. It's something we were discussing. We were at a cruise summit, and people are afraid to, if you have celiac or if you have intolerances or, you're lactose intolerant, well, what am I going to do? Or if I'm vegan or vegetarian, what am I going to do? The cruise ships have gotten excellent about it. They ask you in advance, and it's usually 60 days in advance. What are your food sensitivities? What are their allergies? And a lot of these ships have really come up to the plate with taking care of people's dietary needs, whether you're celiac or glucose and gluten intolerant or, lactose intolerant or whatever. And that's another thing where I think people are very hesitant to go on a ship, because what if I'm stuck on a ship and there's nothing for me to eat because I can't eat this, and this, and this? Many of these ships will make gluten-free pasta, gluten-free pizza, gluten-free hamburger buns, gluten-free rolls. And they will make sure, especially if you're celiac, that it's in a separate kitchen. So I think that's a point I don't think that we've really discussed enough as travel advisors, but I think that is one of the hesitations.
Yeah, I had a luxury agency owner on earlier this year in the show, and we were talking about what luxury clients want now and what the sort of new definition of luxury is. And personalization seemed to be the big thing from him. The luxury traveler, for what they are investing in their vacation, they want to be able to have things personal as possible. And I mean, allergies are definitely included in that, but I imagine it's other things as well. Being able to have personal service on board, being able to sort of have a customizable experience seems to be very important to them.
All of the lines we have discussed have personalized service. Silver Sea, no matter what category of cabin you're in, you have a butler. All of the others, as you get into a higher tier, you have a butler, but your cabin host is always there to bring you, you wanted 4 o'clock, you want a martini, that will go to your room. They're excellent about it. They know that service is really important to you, and you personalize it. What I suggest with all of my, especially new to cruise clients, is the minute you get on board, meet your cabin host, meet your butler, tell them what your expectations are. I mean, when I get on board, I have, 3-4 requirements. I think you and I talked about it, pack and unpack. I want my coffee at 7:10 exactly. Don't wake me up. Just come in, put the coffee down and leave. And then in the afternoon, I might want a snack. But if you lay out the parameters and they know what to that you expect of them, they will be more effective at their job. And all they want to do is make you happy, because if you're happy, you'll come back, and that's what they want. You know, if you want a massage appointment, if you want a dinner appointment, those people are there to make your life easy.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know that the conversation a lot has been about maybe pulling FIT guests over to the luxury cruise segment. And I know FIT guests usually will 2 nights in one city, 2 nights in the next city, 2 nights, 2 nights, 2 nights. And I think a good advantage of a luxury ship, which also makes it sort of this positive reinforcement with the destination component of it, is that you're going to have the same service every day. You're going to have a level of service that's consistent. You're going to be dealing with the same people. So if you do want that custom experience, it sort of improves the more they get to know you throughout the voyage.
It does. And then, of course, there is the added advantage of you don't have to pack and unpack, and you can, you know, and the other thing, a lot of the cruise ships are going to, and again, I think Explora, when she decided to launch her thing, I personally came from the Silver Sea model of everything was included, including the excursions. And they did a huge survey of not including excursions because people, to your point, Dan, wanted to customize their experience. And they wanted to be able to say, no, I don't want to do this, or I want to have a private tour, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. And so I think the model is actually shifting more towards the personalization and customization of the on-land experiences. And you see ships like Crystal, who have partnered with A&K to have those kind of personalized experiences. So for instance, if you go to Rome, let's say, and you have somebody who's there for, 5 days on land, and you create all these excursions and environments, I'm seeing more of that as well on board. I'm seeing people say, well, I'm going to be in this city and I've never been this, and I've looked at the excursions. Can we create something that is not necessarily offered on board? So they're doing that as well. So they don't have to be stuck. They don't have to, nothing has to be cookie cutter at this level. To your point of customization and personalization.
Yeah, and that word stuck too. When we spoke about the first time cruisers, maybe their hesitations, that seems to be a big thing. Like they don't want to be stuck, and they, for whatever their thing in their mind is, that's what they think will happen when they're on board.
Right.
Yeah. So we have a question from Terry, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna just shoot it out there anyway. She wants to know if you have an experience customizing, or is it possible to get a vegetarian menu on board? Which the answer is unequivocally
Absolutely.
yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. I would say breakfast, lunch, and dinner always have vegetarian options. Vegan is a little bit more, I wouldn't say difficult, but I have a client who has recently become vegan. And I was laughing. She goes, and I said, when did that happen? She goes, oh, about a year ago. And I'm like, oh, okay. We haven't taken a cruise since then. But we wrote to the cruise line she's going on, and we reaffirmed the fact that there will be a vegan option for her at every meal. So that it's also, that's our responsibility as travel advisors. We have to make sure that our client preferences are noted in the cruise ship that they're going on.
All right. So I have a few more questions about ships, hardware, and things like that, but I don't want to miss an opportunity to ask you about something you mentioned. You mentioned your background on Wall Street, and what's so important is getting to know your customer and knowing what your customer wants and knowing what's going to be best for your customer. And so we could talk about that a little bit as well. Like any advice about getting to know a customer in order to place them on the right line, in the right cabin, on the right ship, on the right itinerary. What kind of things are important for you to know in order to be able to best suit their needs?
I think you have to start with what their hesitations are. Why is it you have never done a cruise? And why is it you're hesitant to do a cruise? Then you have to ask what their expectations would be if they did a cruise. You don't want to oversell going on a cruise to someone. It's your responsibility not only to ask what's important, what is the itinerary you want, what is the time frame you want. Are you the kind of person that's going to be okay getting in the morning of a cruise? Do you want to go for a few days before? Do you want to stay a few days after? Have you ever been there? Those all sort of informational questions, but then you have to set the expectations and you have to educate them. And what I try to do with especially people who have never, cruised on a certain cruise line is actually go through the ship with them tell them to pull up the deck plan and let's talk about where the restaurant's on. Because if you've never cruised and you get on midship on deck 4 and you're like, okay, where am I? I mean, you don't want the first 6 hours for them to be stressful. You want them to get on and you say, okay, you get on deck 4, and deck 4 is reservations or the concierge or whatever. Deck 5 is on where you get your restaurant reservations, and you go through the deck plan with them so that they feel like when they go to a hotel, you know, they know the concierge, they know where the pool is, they know where the restaurants are. It's the same thing. But when you get on a ship, you might be at sea for a day or two, and you don't want your client going, oh my God, what have I done? You want them to get on and be super comfortable. What kind of food is important for them? Is it important for them to have an all-inclusive package? Most of these do, but those are the kinds of questions that I ask.
You mentioned you want to be careful not to oversell.
Correct.
What do you mean by that?
There are always little glitches, as in anything. And what you want to do is you want to say to, and I say this to my clients who are on board, I'm available at any time. And if you have really good relationships with your business development manager, if there is an issue, you can get in touch with them, they can get in touch with the ship. And you want your client to be comfortable. You don't want them to think that things happen all the time. You know, did their particular excursion get canceled? And if it did, how is that going to be handled? You want to be available so that you manage any disappointment at the moment. You don't want them to come home and be disappointed. You want them to, if they have an issue, address it immediately. You know, listen, I've gotten calls with, I don't like my room at this hotel. Can you please call the concierge? And I'm like, you're right there. You don't want to do that yourself. No, you do it. Okay. So that's what I mean.
All right, awesome. All right, so we have a little more than 10 minutes left. If anyone has questions, please drop them in the chat. I do want to continue on this thread, just because earlier in the week we were speaking, and you mentioned that a client's vacation history and preference might be a good place to look to start crafting their ideal luxury cruise experience. I know we're talking about Explora a lot, where you mentioned Silversea, but I'm curious, like, is it possible to gain some insight into what kind of luxury hotels they stay at as to what luxury cruise line would be best for them?
Absolutely. So for instance, Seabourn is I would call it a more, and I said this too, it's a more traditional, it has warm mahogany tones. It's a little bit more, it's an older hotel feel. It would be more of like a club look. It has a club feel. So if you know somebody that likes to stay at that kind of a hotel, then something that is more modern might be a jarring experience for them. So you would calibrate what ship they would go on. Do they like, you know, streamlined curtains? Do they like, you know, brocade? I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but that's when your customer has a certain affinity for a certain type of hotel, you can pretty much look at the landscape and go, this will work, this will not work. If that makes any sense. You know, some of them.
Is it just the feel of the hotels that you can sort of match? Like you mentioned, the sort of the way it looks, but it seems like there's also a vibe that makes a certain hotel brand sticky. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're going to be walking around the ship, you know, every day, all day, and you want to feel comfortable. So if you're in a, let's say you go to Claridge's or the Connaught, that kind of an environment would lend you to a more traditionally decorated ship, more maybe like a Regent, because it's more lush, it's more elaborate than perhaps a Silversea, or even a Ponant or an Explorer, because they're a little bit more modern. And that might be more of a, you know, a newly designed Four Seasons or a new Waldorf, you know, or a new W. That might be if you have a client that tends towards those kinds of hotels, you would never, you know, you wouldn't want to put them on the Grandeur, on the Regent, because it would be a mismatch. I think it's personality. I think it goes down to what's your travel personality.
Yeah, I think personality is a better word. I use the word vibe, but personalities I think is a better word to use. Yeah, it does seem like it does translate a lot. Like you mentioned, the Four Seasons, the Ritz, the W. These hotel brands have personality
Yeah.
that aren't exactly like their brands at sea, but you can sort of get the same feel.
No, exactly. They're not going to be identical to what the ships are, but you're going to have within, certain parameters, you'll say this will work, this won't work. And I think that's important, you know.
And we also talked a little bit earlier in the week about destinations, about where people like to frequently travel, and maybe that would lend a hint to where the best luxury cruise brand would be. Like we spoke about, we spoke about Paris a little bit, we spoke about Amsterdam, but these also provide some clues to what would best suit them as well.
Well, Paris and Amsterdam really are more river cruises, but if you wanted to do ocean cruises, you're talking about the Northern Isles, or you're talking about the Caribbean, or Asia's coming way back. We're seeing so many people going to Asia. Oceania, which is, Australia and New Zealand, Singapore, Africa, the Middle East has been kicked out yet again by some of the cruise lines. So I think, I think I mentioned to you, you have clients who have, I don't like the word bucket list, but they have destinations they want to see. So you have a client, for instance, that's going to Japan, and they're doing a cruise, whatever it is. And then you do what I call bookending it. You have them do 5 days before and 5 days after, so they don't have to go back. I think the closer in geographically they can go, the Mediterranean, you can do, 100 different itineraries. Asia's a little bit more scripted, I think. The Fiji Islands, all of those things are a little bit more scripted because you're so many days at sea. But I think that the Mediterranean, a big one up and coming, is actually going up the east coast of the US and going into Canada, which is interesting. And
Yeah.
Ponant has a icebreaker. They're the first that's ever going to be on the St. Lawrence River, which is amazing.
Why do you think that is a neutral? Like, why do you think the destination is gaining popularity?
I don't know if I don't know. Maybe because it's geographically, it's manageable. It's 7 days. And I think that, to Amy's point, a lot of people want to do the 7 days. They do 2 days before. So think of it this way. You leave on a Friday, you come back on a Sunday. That gives you a day or two before or after. I think that's, people like that 7 days. Personally, I could live on a ship, so I don't get it, but I was on Explora for the inaugural for 35 days. And the day I got off, I literally was in tears. I was like, can I stay, please? I said, please, I don't want, I could live on a ship, but there are people who 7 days is enough, and again, it's all depending upon, it's also for your client time-wise. The working wealthy, which is like the 50 to 65, isn't retired yet. So 7 days is all they can manage, because then if they have kids or grandkids, they want to spend time with the thing. The other thing we didn't talk about is the multi-generational aspect.
Yeah.
Of how that is changing.
Yeah, we actually had a question earlier that I wanted to get to, but I pushed off because we were at a different sort of point of the conversation. But Patricia asked specifically about that, about multi-gen family. They want to do a luxury cruise. They have kids. They might have teens. Like what kind of experience can they have on board, and why does luxury cruise sort of would make sense, I guess, for the multi-gen groups?
So if you think about, we talk about all of the cruise. Everybody today is into experiences. Experiences are something that no one can take away from you. You will have, my son was very fortunate. My parents, because I was a single parent from the very beginning, raised him. We started traveling to Europe when he was 3.5, and his memory bank is full of all of these travel situations with my parents. And I'm seeing more and more of that. I have 4 grandchildren. The same thing. I'm trying to, one is 2 and one is 4.5. But you're seeing that more and more. As far as teens go, it's amazing. They've been exposed to, kids that go on cruise ships like that, at that level, have been exposed to a whole lot. This isn't taking them off the playground and dumping them, into an ultra luxury ship. They will have ice cream. They will have French fries. They're well behaved. And it's an experience with the family. They'll do an excursion together, or they'll see a lecture together. And they use that as an opportunity to bond with their children, or their children and their grandchildren. We're seeing some 3 and 4 generations, if you're so blessed. I think little ones, I think with little ones, it's harder. Silver Sea has a kids club. Explora has the Mariners Club, which is, I think you have to be 5. You don't see a whole lot of children on it, and they have activities, but I think it's a wonderful way, and the cruise companies are getting smart. The 3rd and the 4th passenger are significantly reduced. So if you have a fairly large suite and you have the 3rd and 4th, you make accommodations for the kids, they want them.
It does feel like correct me if I'm wrong, but it does feel like we talked about the first time cruisers. There's some misconceptions in their mind coming into this industry. It does seem like there might be some misconceptions coming into this segment, this luxury cruise segment. I was speaking to an agency owner and advisor last week, and they used the word unpretentious luxury seems to be like what their clients want now. They don't want the stuffy luxury, and it seems like these luxury cruise lines are aiming for something less pretend. Yeah.
That's like the new focus in fashion is demure. We're demure,
Yeah.
We're yes, that the cruise lines, the one thing about the cruise line industry, which is really interesting, is it's listening. It is listening to its passengers. It's listening to its clients. They don't want to take the 3 steamer trunks with the ball gowns anymore. They want to get on and they want to wear their $450, jeans and a collared shirt and maybe a leather jacket or not, but it is the quiet luxury. That's a whole trend that I think the cruise ships have smartly embraced. If you go on a Regent cruise and they have formal night, now Silver Sea still has formal night. Crystal has formal nights. Regent has formal nights. Oceana does not have formal nights. Do they? I don't think so. They have, some nights you wear a cocktail dress, but it's the whole gamut. You can go to the pizza restaurant on a cruise ship and literally, be in your jeans if you want. You want to go to, maybe one of the specialty restaurants. Yeah, you get dressed up a little bit more, but it's nothing more than country club casual anymore. And or you can, if you want to get dressed up, because this is the first time you can, wear your jewelry or whatever, and you're out of your tennis clothes, you can also do that. But people can feel very comfortable. I have one client whose one caveat is the husband will not wear a jacket. He will spend $125,000 on a suite, but he will not wear a jacket.
Yeah, it does seem like that is what's trending now. Where, like you mentioned, the demure. Like it does seem like I don't think
if you look on TikTok, I'm quiet and demure, and they have, all the women are like, but it's very true, and that's an excellent question. No, I think you can feel fairly comfortable, getting on in, like some of my clients say, what can I wear at night? And I say, I wear black palazzo pants and I bring lots of tops. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know
black jeans and 4-inch heels, whatever.
I've heard the same, like men wanting to wear basketball shorts to lunch when they're grabbing a quick bite, and that seems to be completely fine. Despite the price you're paying, it does seem to be
6 o'clock on Silver Sea. The men are not allowed to be in the bars in shorts. That is a tried and true, and I don't think they're going to change that. But if they were wearing khakis, they wouldn't care. I do think the basketball short look is not good after 6 o'clock on Silver Sea. That's a no-no.
Yeah, it seems like a good call. All right, so we spoke about the services, spoke about the pricing, the more value pricing too. We spoke about the onboard experiences, the lectures, the lounges, things like that. Any other hardware on board that I guess was surprising to you when you first started getting into the industry, or your clients really love that is good for advisors to market and talk to when they're pitching this stuff to their clients?
Well, the wellness centers, spa, exercise rooms, people ask questions like, well, do they do gel manicures? Yeah, most of them do. Do they have a hair salon? Do they have a swimming pool? Do they have saunas? Do they have steam rooms? A lot of the ships also off of these, the spa areas have quiet areas where you can go and take a book and be, one with nature. So I think that, and they're all pretty good, and they're very little of having to get up at 6 a.m. and put your towel on a chaise to keep it. So, because they're enough for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. I think that folds into the service too, and folds into sort of the attitude on board and the ability to breathe. these people have high stress jobs or high stress family lives, the ability to come on board to see the world, to breathe.
They have pickleball. They have pickleball now. They have basketball. And I think, and they have tennis, and they have, golf. You can, putts. So you can be outside, and you can be, have this ocean air, blowing in your face while you're hitting a golf ball, and then you can pretend you're at Pebble Beach.
All right, so I saw a question to Amy. First of all, Mark, this will be recorded, and we'll get this email out to everyone tomorrow. It'll also be in our YouTube later today as well. But I saw a question to Amy about getting on board Explora, and just something you mentioned earlier in the week. We were talking, and you mentioned that you will not sell a ship you haven't sailed on or a ship you're not completely familiar with. And I guess just to wrap up the conversation, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about why you have that philosophy, why that is so important to you to be able to know a product and to be able to communicate it to your client.
Because I want to build relationships. I don't want to just be an order taker. I worked at a premier bank where we built relationships. I didn't work in a boiler room aspect of Wall Street. So I wasn't write the ticket and throw it in the box. I want to build a relationship. So for me, if I don't know what the ship is, I can't effectively sell it. Can you sell it? Absolutely. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying that's my own personal, that is my own personal mantra. I will not sell what I have not sailed. And I think it makes me more effective. Does it limit sometimes, somebody will call me and say, well, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? And I go, I'm happy to do the research, or perhaps they've been on it and they want different ideas. But I think it's very important. And again, the cruise ships are really wonderful about having advisors on to learn about the ship. They know that you're a more effective salesman than anybody who hasn't been on the ship. If you can say, I was on, for instance, you asked the question, how's the food? Well, if I've been on the ship and I know how fabulous the food is, and I can tell them where to go in what restaurant, they trust that. It's also about building trust. So if I say to somebody, this is the cabin, this is this is that, the food, then I think that they can be comfort. And you want your clients to have a certain level of comfort.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I just want to sort of reinforce that too, because we have a lot of questions about people getting on board. I know travel advisors want to build that trust, and that's going to be most important.
When they say getting on board, what do you mean? What do they mean getting on board?
Advisors themselves want to get on board to experience the product. I mean. Yeah.
Well, I know that our sponsor today is very effective of having travel advisors on board. And I think that the other ones are, as I said, I'm new to the industry, and they're very open to having me on board. I haven't done, the ones I've done so far, I have self-funded, so to speak. I'm like those guys that review airplanes. But I think that the cruise ships are smart enough to know that if you get on board and you look, and sometimes it's 3 days, but you don't need more than that, to really understand what the ship is and having a familiarity. And I think then your client goes, okay, you know what you're talking about. A client never wants to be sold. I don't think, you're just selling to sell. You want to have them have an experience that will, make them come back and see, I really enjoyed that. I want to do that again. That's the kind of reaction you want. That's my feeling.
Dan, can I chime in on the
please.
advisors getting on board?
Yeah,
it has been coming up in the chat here, and I know Suzanne mentioned that we've done a great job of getting advisors on board, and we will continue to do that. We not only have travel advisor rates available, but we did have the opportunity for travel advisors to earn a complimentary journey with us by becoming a pioneer and selling our brand before December 31st of 2023. The one thing I will say is, while we love travel advisors raising their hand and saying that they want to come on and experience the brand, if you sail with us at a travel advisor rate, it's a discounted rate. If you have the opportunity to be on one of our insider first looks, that's a complimentary opportunity. There's an expectation on the other side of it. So make sure that you are demonstrating that you are engaged and that you have the clientele with that line, whichever line it is, because your commitment is just as important as our commitment. And we're in a partnership here, and we don't want advisors just coming on and thinking they're going on a free vacation. And I know
Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Suzanne.
I think, Amy, I think that's a really valid point, which is why I say I never sell what I haven't sold. And I know my client base well enough to know that, and it's the same thing with hotels. You don't take advantage of going to a hotel with no expectation to sell. And I think that's the kind of thing, and that's a really, really, really good point. That's the kind of thing that gives the travel agents, the travel world a bad reputation. You want to, and you said you're in partnership. And also, I think it's a question of ethics. I think, you know, if you're going to go on a ship and take advantage of their being generous, then you have to repay it. So I think that's 100%. And I didn't mean to imply that it was open season, you know, but if you have a client base who you think you can sell this line to, or any of the lines, then you can take advantage of it.
Yep.
Yeah. I think the word partner, I think Amy used it, and I think we use it probably every one of these webinars or these episodes, is really appropriate. We had a content creator who's a travel advisor come on, and even when she's getting on board ships or at these resorts, she says she's there to work, she's there to create content. I think it was the same thing. Like there's always, like Amy mentioned, two-way street. So I think it's really important to talk about. But I guess we're gonna wrap up there. But first of all, I want to thank Amy for jumping in there, and thanks Amy for sponsoring. We always love having you here, and we love this ongoing partnership with Explora. So we're so happy to have you, and thanks so much for sponsoring today's episode.
You're welcome. Thank you for giving us the opportunity, and I loved listening to you and Suzanne cover various different topics. I think your advice was fantastic, and I hope everyone on the line has taken away something that they can use in their everyday selling tools when it comes to working with any of the cruise lines that you mentioned or that are out there as well. So we appreciate it.
And if anybody has any questions, Dan, I don't know if you want to share my email. I think this industry, one of the things I do love is I think it's more collaborative than people give it credit for being. And I'm always happy, you know, to get on a call. If you have a new client who you can't quite close that sale and you want to have me jump on a call, I'm happy to do it. I think that that's what, you know, the industry, we should be more collaborative. So I'm happy to answer any questions, you know, given what I've sailed. And if anybody wants to reach out, I'm happy to do that.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Suzanne, too, for your time. Again, I want to mention it, but I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks everyone for coming. Happy Halloween. We'll see you November 14th. And stay safe.
Don't eat too much candy.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.